The dog slept in the girl's graveyard for 7 years. The truth behind made everyone froze. The graveyard sat on a low hill at the edge of town, where stone paths curved through green grass and old trees watched the sky. Early light touched the headstones and made a soft glow on the dew. Birds rustled in the branches. A thin breeze moved the leaves like a quiet whisper. Most mornings, the place was empty except for the groundskeeper sweeping the steps and a brown dog who knew exactly where to go. He was a medium-sized dog with kind eyes and a coat the color of dry leaves. People called him Buddy, though no one could say who named him first. Buddy did not bark or chase birds. He did not beg at the gate or wander across the grounds. Every day, just after sunrise, he walked up the hill with steady steps, past the small caretaker hut, and turned toward one grave under a large banyan tree. He circled once, pressed his nose to the grass, and lay down beside the stone as if that spot had been kept for him. The headstone carried the name Noor. It was not the tallest or the newest stone, but it had a gentle look. A blue ribbon, faded by time and weather, was tied to a low branch of the banyan. When the wind moved, the ribbon fluttered like a small flag. People sometimes paused to read the name, but they never touched the ribbon. It seemed to belong there, the same way the morning light belonged to the hill. On the path, Baba Yunus unlocked the iron gate and set his broom against the wall. He had been the groundskeeper for years. His hair was white and his walk was slow, yet his hands were firm when he lifted fallen branches or cleaned the carved letters on a headstone. He greeted Buddy the same way each morning. "Assalam, little guard," he would say in a warm voice, and Buddy's ears would lift in reply. Baba Yunus had watched the dog for a long time. He knew Buddy slept through cold mornings and hot afternoons. He knew the dog rose only to drink water or to sit quietly when visitors came. Sometimes, Farah and Jamal climbed the hill with a bouquet of fresh flowers wrapped in paper. They were Noor's parents. Their steps were careful. They spoke softly, sharing the memories of a kind girl who loved stories and light. They never stayed too long. Farah would smooth the grass with her palm and press her forehead to the cool stone. Jamal would stand behind her, steady and quiet. Buddy never came too close, but he lifted his head when they arrived and rested it back on his paws after they settled. Farah and Jamal brought a small bowl, filled it with clean water, and placed it near the tree. "Thank you," they would whisper, though they did not say whether they spoke to the dog, to the wind, or to the memory of their child. Word of the dog spread through the town. People tell each other gentle stories in small places, and the story grew like a plant that finds sun. Some said Buddy was a stray who had lost his home long ago. Some said he was a guardian, sent by love to keep one corner of the world safe. Children liked the tale that Buddy was listening for secrets in the grass and would carry them to the sky when the moon was bright. Each person added a little hope to the rumors, and no one wanted to prove them wrong. Sana, a young reporter from the local paper, first heard about Buddy while waiting for tea at the market. A shopkeeper told her, "The dog has been doing this for years. He never breaks the circle." The phrase caught her ear, "never breaks the circle." She climbed the hill the next morning with a small notebook and a camera. She did not expect a big story, she expected a quiet one. But sometimes quiet stories open the heart more than loud ones. She saw the dog under the banyan tree and stopped at a respectful distance. She checked the time. It was exactly 7 minutes after sunrise. Sana returned the next day and the next. She watched from the path, careful not to disturb anyone. She noticed how Buddy's nose always touched one patch of ground near the base of the tree. She noticed the way he never stepped on other graves. She noticed the blue ribbon and how it moved even on still days. She wrote times, weather, and small details with simple words. In the margins she wrote, "What keeps him here? Habit. Memory. Promise." Seasons changed and returned. In summer, the hill wore a crown of light. Heat shimmered above the stones. Buddy panted but stayed in the shade. In autumn, the banyan dropped dry leaves, and Baba Yanis raked them into a neat pile. In winter, mist settled so thick that the headstones looked like islands. Buddy's breath made white clouds in the air. In spring, the grass felt new and soft again, and small flowers pushed through the earth like bright buttons on a green coat. Through all of it, the dog kept his place. One afternoon, a group of school children came with their teacher. They were learning about local history. They walked between the rows with wide eyes and respectful steps. The teacher pointed out carved dates and spoke gently about remembering those who came before us. A small boy in a red sweater stood near the banyan and asked in a whisper, "Why does the dog sleep here?" The teacher smiled. "Maybe he is keeping a promise," she said. The boy thought about this and nodded, as if it explained everything important in the world. Baba Yanis had his routines, too. He filled a kettle at the sink behind the hut and set it on a small stove. He lined up his tools, broom, clippers, cloth, and a bottle of water to clean stone. When no one was watching, he sometimes placed a little biscuit by Buddy's bowl. The dog would not eat until the old man had walked away. "Polite fellow," Baba would say, amused and proud, as if he had taught Buddy good manners himself. On some evenings, he locked the gate and looked back up the hill to see the brown shape curled against the grass like a comma in a long sentence. Farah and Jamal measured their days with kindness wherever they could find it. They brought flowers on anniversaries and on ordinary Tuesdays. They left small white lilies in the summer and marigolds in the fall. They spoke to Noor in simple sentences, telling her about the neighbors, the color of the sunset, or the sound of rain on the kitchen roof. They rarely mentioned the hospital or the year of hard days before the goodbye. Those memories stayed inside, carefully folded. They preferred to share the light, the way Noor liked to sit under trees and draw pictures of animals, the way she laughed when a dog tried to sit on a book as if it were a cushion. Sana learned a little more each week. A florist told her that Farah always asked for the freshest stems. A tea vendor said Jamal had once bought a small umbrella to keep rain off a stray cat. A taxi driver said Buddy never chased wheels or crossed the road without looking. These small facts felt like beads on a string. When Sana looked at them all together, they drew a picture of care for plants, for animals, for each other. She thought maybe this was the heart of the story: gentle care, repeated every day, becomes something strong. On the 7th anniversary of Noor's passing, clouds gathered before dawn. The air smelled like wet soil and leaves. Rain started soft, then fell harder, tapping the path like fingers on a drum. The banyan tree shook and let go of a few tired branches. Water ran along the stone edges and down into the earth. Buddy stood, shook himself, and moved closer to the trunk, where the ground was slightly raised and dry. The blue ribbon, heavy with rain, still managed to move. When the rain slowed, Sana came up the hill with her small umbrella. She reached the tree just as Farah and Jamal arrived with a cloth to dry the headstone. Baba Yanis followed with a shovel to clear leaves from the path. For a moment, they all stood together, not speaking. The sound of rain ending is a sound people listen to without words. Buddy lowered his head to the same patch of ground he always chose. He pressed his nose to the grass, then lifted a paw and touched the spot, soft but sure. Something in the soil had changed. The heavy rain had loosened the top layer near the roots. A tiny corner of plastic peeked through like a torn page from a book. It was small, almost nothing, the kind of thing a person could miss even if they were looking for it. But Buddy did not miss it. He pawed once more, very gently, then looked up at Farah and Jamal and wagged his tail just once, a slow and careful motion, as if he were asking permission. Farah leaned forward, her hand hovering above the ground, unsure if she should touch it. Jamal glanced at Baba Yanis, who nodded in a quiet way that said he understood the rules and also understood the weight of a moment. Sana lifted her camera but did not click. Some moments are not for a shutter. The ribbon stirred, though the air was almost still. The edge of plastic showed a little more. The town below the hill went on with its morning. Shops pulled up their metal shutters. The bakery sent out the warm smell of fresh bread. A bus rolled past the square with passengers who did not know what was happening on the hill. But up here, the 4 people and 1 dog stood in a small circle of attention, steady and kind. The rain had washed the story clean and left a single new line for them to read. Buddy rested his paw on the grass beside the plastic and let out a small breath. It was not a whine, not a cry, just a soft exhale that said he had reached the place he always knew. Baba Yanis put his hand on the shovel but did not use it. Farah placed her palm flat against the damp earth as if to say thank you to the ground itself. Jamal looked at the banyan's long branches and closed his eyes for a heartbeat. Sana wrote one sentence in her notebook, "The dog remembers what we forget." No one spoke the words aloud, but each of them felt the same thought. 7 years is a long time to keep a promise, and yet it felt like no time at all when the promise is made of love. The hill was quiet again. A sunbeam touched the blue ribbon and made it shine for a second, like a sign. Buddy lifted his head and looked at the people he trusted. They did not yet know what they would find, but they knew they were meant to look. And that was the moment the story began to change. The board that managed the cemetery met once a month in a small room behind the town library. On a rainy Tuesday, they sat around a long table with neat stacks of paper. The chairperson, Mr. Raffi, held a folder with letters from people who lived near the hill. Some letters were kind and asked the board to let the dog stay. A few letters complained about rules. No animals, one note said in bold pen. The rule had been written years ago to keep the grounds clean and calm. Now it pressed on the room like a tight collar. Baba Yanis stood by the door with his cap in his hands. He had trimmed the paths and washed the stone steps that morning, and he had also filled Buddy's water bowl. He spoke in a steady voice. The dog does not break flowers. He does not run. He does not make noise. He lies by one stone only. Mr. Raffi listened, then sighed. We know, Baba. People still expect the rule to be the rule. The board members looked at one another, torn between paper and heart. In the same hour, Farah and Jamal were in the kitchen, setting marigolds in a vase. The rain tapped the window. Farah's hands paused above the stems. If they send him away, she said, it will feel like the hill has lost a friend. Jamal nodded. His voice stayed gentle. Let's go to the next meeting. We will speak. They did not plan a speech, they planned to tell the truth in simple words, the way they had learned to do over the hard years, say what matters, say it kindly, and stop. Sana, the reporter, heard whispers about the meeting and walked up the hill to see Buddy. He lay in his usual place, his head on his paws, eyes soft and awake. She sat a few steps away, notebook in her lap. They might ask you to go, she said quietly, like she was only thinking aloud. Buddy flicked an ear. A drop of rain fell from the banyan leaf onto his back. He did not move. Sana wrote the time, the weather, the way the blue ribbon hung heavy but still found a way to stir. On Thursday, the board opened the library room again. More chairs lined the wall. Farah and Jamal sat together, their hands linked. Baba Yanis stood near the back. A few neighbors came, some familiar from the market or the mosque, some new. Sana took a seat with her pen ready. Mr. Raffi cleared his throat. We have a long agenda, he began, then stopped, because a woman raised her hand and said, please, can we talk about the dog first? A soft roll of laughter warmed the room. Mr. Raffi smiled in spite of himself. All right. The dog. A man in a gray jacket stood to speak. He had written one of the complaint letters. I respect the dog, he said. But a rule is a rule. If we allow one dog today, tomorrow someone will bring 3. We must be fair. His words were neat and careful, like lines drawn with a ruler. A young mother spoke next. She brought her little girl to the library every week. My child points at the hill and says the dog is kind, she said. There must be a way to keep kindness and also keep the grounds clean. Farah rose slowly. She held nothing in her hands and still looked like she was carrying something important. My husband and I visit our daughter's grave, she said. We do not stay long. The dog lies nearby like quiet comfort. We never asked him to do that. It is his own choice. If the rule must be the rule, then please let us ask for a kind exception. Her voice did not shake. It was steady the way water is steady when it finds the right path to move. There was a pause. Jamal added a few words. We will help with care. We will keep a bowl and a mat for him. We will not let the place become messy. He looked at the board and then at the people sitting around them. We believe the dog is part of our healing. He has never troubled anyone. He simply keeps watch. Several heads nodded. Sana wrote that line simply keeps watch and underlined it. She knew simple lines sometimes carry the most weight. Still, the board had to decide. After a short discussion, Mr. Rafi announced, we will give it 1 week. If we receive more complaints, animal control will come on Friday to take the dog to a shelter. In the meantime, we need proof of ownership and a plan for care. The words felt heavier than they looked. People left the room in quiet voices, like a soft wave retreating from the shore. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky felt like a held breath. Farah and Jamal walked down the library steps and did not let go of each other's hands. Sana did what good reporters do, she looked for facts, not only feelings. She called Dr. Kamal, the town's kind-eyed veterinarian, and asked if he could scan the dog for a microchip. If Buddy once had a home, we may find a record, she said. Dr. Kamal agreed at once. Bring him by, he said, or I'll come up the hill. It's better not to move him if he is used to that place. And so on a bright morning, under the banyan tree, the vet kneeled with a small scanner that hummed like a bee. Buddy stayed still. Dr. Kamal moved the device along the dog's neck and shoulder blade. A soft beep sounded. The vet's face changed, first surprised, then moved. He has a chip, he said. Let me check. He typed the number into a small device and then into his phone. This chip was registered 8 years ago, he read. Owner, Noor's family. He looked up at Farah and Jamal, who had arrived with fresh flowers. For a second, no one spoke. The blue ribbon made a small, brave motion in the calm air. Farah pressed her lips together and then smiled through the feeling that rose. So he came to us first, she said softly. Jamal nodded. And he stayed. The vet explained in simple terms how microchips work, tiny, safe, a way to return lost pets to their families. Sometimes families move or records sleep, he said, but this one stayed awake in his neck all this time. Sana wrote quickly, then stopped writing. There are moments when a page must rest. She watched Buddy lower his head again to the grass beside Noor's stone. Word spread kindly after that. Children learned that Buddy was not a stray but a friend who had always known his people. The man in the gray jacket read the update in the paper and frowned at his own letter. He walked up the hill on his lunch break and stood near the banyan. I am sorry, he said in a low voice, not sure who he spoke to, maybe to the dog, maybe to the ribbon, maybe to the air. Buddy looked at him once, then closed his eyes. The man left a small bowl with clean water and walked away with lighter steps. But the week moved fast. Friday drew close. The board had not received new complaints, but some members still felt worried about rules and what might come next. Sana called Mr. Rafi and asked for a comment. We do not wish to be unkind, he said. We only wish to be fair. She thanked him for his time and promised to report carefully. Then she went back up the hill to observe the dog's routine again. She found him already there, in his circle of peace, and sat nearby with her notebook open to a fresh page. That evening, the sky turned the color of peaches and silver. The town slowed. Shopkeepers rolled down shutters. A distant call to prayer drifted up like a familiar song. Under the banyan, Buddy stood and stretched. He walked to the base of the trunk, touched his nose to the same patch of ground, and paused. Then he walked away from the tree and returned carrying something in his mouth, a piece of ribbon, frayed at the ends, the same shade of blue as the one tied above. He set it on the grass near the spot he always pawed. Sana felt a small pulse of surprise. She had seen the ribbon on the branch all week. She looked up, the ribbon still hung there, tied in a neat knot. The piece Buddy placed on the ground was another one, older, worn by time. Where had he kept it? How had it stayed with him through rain and heat? Buddy touched it with his nose once and then lay down beside it, his tail thumping the grass twice, slow and sure. It felt like a signal, but of what, no one yet knew. The next morning, Farah reached the hill and saw the ribbon piece. She knelt and smoothed it with her fingertips. The fabric was thin, like the memory of a song. Noor loved this color, she said. Jamal stood behind her, quiet. Baba Yunus, who had arrived with his broom, stared at the ground where recent rain had loosened the soil. The earth is trying to speak, he murmured. He did not mean anything grand, he meant that sometimes the ground gives back what it once held, the way the sea returns a shell to the shore. Sana called Dr. Kamal again. Could it be a sign, she asked, half smiling at her own question. The vet laughed softly. Sometimes dogs keep tokens, he said. A sock, a leaf, a ribbon. Things that smell like the people they love. If he placed it there, perhaps he remembers more than we think. The idea was simple and strong. People came and went that day, each pausing to look at the ribbon on the grass. No one moved it. It felt right where it was, like a marker drawn by a quiet paw. As Friday approached, the board prepared to make its final call. Mr. Rafi read the week's notes. There were no new complaints. There were, however, small messages from school children written in neat pencil: please let the dog stay. He helps people be calm. He is part of the hill. Adults wrote too, not long essays, just short lines: I feel peace when I see him. He keeps the place gentle. Rules can have doors for kindness. The stack of papers looked less like a file and more like a hand open to help. On the hill, the air shifted from warm to cool as evening fell. Lights came on in houses down below. A thin moon rose above the banyan leaves. Buddy rested his head near the ribbon and the familiar patch of ground. Farah and Jamal stood together, and Baba Yana set his broom aside. Sana took one photograph of the scene from a respectful distance, the kind of image that does not steal a moment but honors it. It captured the quiet, the tree, the dog, the ribbon, the gentle faces turned towards something they did not yet fully understand. No one knew what the next day would bring, only that a line had been drawn in time, before the ribbon on the grass and after it. The board's deadline was close. The vet's discovery had changed minds. The town's heart leaned toward mercy. And under the banyan, the dog kept his steady watch, as if he were waiting for a door to open, not a wooden door on a hinge, but a door inside people, the kind that leads from worry to trust. The night grew calm. The ribbon lay still. Somewhere, a page was about to turn. The storm arrived heavy that night. Rain poured over the hill and filled the cracks of the path. Lightning flashed behind the banyan tree, and thunder rolled like a drum across the valley. Water ran down the slopes and gathered around the roots. Baba Yunus held his umbrella tight as he climbed to check that no branches had broken. In the dim light, he saw Buddy standing near Noor's grave. The dog's fur was wet, but he did not move away. He pressed his nose to the earth, then began to paw at the ground with slow, steady strokes. The soil was soft from the rain. Each scrape of Buddy's paw revealed a little more of something hidden. Baba Yanis frowned and stepped closer. He saw the edge of plastic glinting in the lightning's light. He bent down and gently brushed the soil with his hand. His old fingers found the corner of a small tin box, wrapped in clear plastic that had yellowed with time. His heart beat faster. "What are you showing us, old friend?" he whispered. By the next morning, the rain had stopped, leaving a damp hush over the hill. The banyan leaves dripped with water, and the air smelled fresh. Farah and Jamal arrived with lilies. Sana came running with her notebook and camera. Dr. Kamal joined them too, curious about the discovery. Baba Yanis showed them the spot where Buddy had pawed and the small tin that had been lifted halfway from the ground. He looked around at them all. "I did not open it," he said. "It belongs to her family." Farah's hands shook as she reached down. She pulled the box free and brushed the dirt away. The plastic was torn at one side, but it had done its job. Inside, they found a tin rusted at the edges but still shut tight. Jamal pressed the lid, and it opened with a soft snap. The group leaned close. Inside lay a folded paper, a small sketch, and something that looked like an old electronic toy. The paper was creased, but the ink was still clear. It was Noor's handwriting, simple, rounded letters with little flowers drawn at the corners. Farah pressed it to her chest before she could even read. Jamal placed a hand on her shoulder. Sana's pen froze. She knew this was not a moment for quick notes. The sketch showed a child's drawing, a tree with wide branches, a girl sitting on the grass, and a dog beside her. The lines were shaky but full of care. At the top, in uneven letters, Noor had written, "Me and Buddy, under our tree." Buddy sniffed the paper as if he remembered the smell of those afternoons. The third item was small but strange, a voice recorder, thin and old, with a button worn from use. Its battery door was loose. "It's a digital recorder," Dr. Kamal said softly. "They were common years ago. Many children liked to record songs or thoughts." Sana felt her skin prickle. A recorder meant a voice could be inside, waiting. Farah opened the folded paper. Noor's words were simple and bright, "This is for Buddy and Mama and Papa. If I go away, I want Buddy to stay under the tree. He will keep the place safe. And when you feel sad, you can sit with him. Please read stories here. It will make hearts lighter. I will be happy if you do that. I love you." Tears rolled down Farah's cheeks. Jamal turned his face, but his eyes shone. The old groundskeeper bowed his head. The words were written with a child's hope, without fear or long sentences. Just a wish, direct and gentle. Sana whispered, "She planned it. She left him this job." Her pen shook as she wrote the line. Dr. Kamal held the recorder carefully. "It may still hold her voice," he said. He pulled a small pack of batteries from his bag. He always carried spares for his clinic tools. His fingers trembled as he slid one into place. He pressed play. For a moment, only static filled the air. The sound was rough, like wind across a microphone. They waited. Buddy lifted his head, ears tilted. Then the recorder clicked, and silence followed. Everyone held their breath. Dr. Kamal tried again, pressing rewind, then play. More static, a faint hum, then nothing. Farah's heart sank. She touched the recorder gently, as though it were fragile glass. "Maybe it is broken," she whispered. Sana shook her head. "No. It still has something inside. We just need to be patient." She looked at Buddy, who was staring at the box, his eyes calm but alert. His tail moved once, slow and steady, as if he knew more than they did. That night, word of the discovery spread quietly through town. At tea stalls and bakeries, people spoke in soft tones. They found a box near the girl's grave. Her dog showed them. There was a note, a drawing, maybe even her voice. Some doubted, Some believed. All agreed that something unusual was happening on the hill. Back on the slope, the banyan tree stood silent under the stars. Buddy lay curled at its roots, guarding the tin and its contents. The blue ribbon above moved gently in the night air, as if answering a hidden call. The next morning, more townspeople arrived. They didn't come to disturb, they came to stand at a distance and watch. Children peeked from behind their parents. Old neighbors shook their heads in wonder. Baba Yanis reminded everyone to be quiet and respectful. The crowd obeyed, their curiosity tempered by the feeling that they were stepping into something sacred. Dr. Kamal brought a small tool from his clinic to clean the recorder's contacts. Sana carried extra batteries. Farah held the paper close to her heart, refusing to let it out of her hands. Jamal carried the sketch, folded neatly in his pocket. They gathered again under the banyan, Buddy lying in the center like a silent keeper. Dr. Kamal adjusted the recorder and pressed play once more. Static filled the air. For a heartbeat, nothing else. Then a faint sound, like a child humming, slipped through the noise. It was thin, broken, but real. The crowd gasped. Buddy's ears twitched. Farah covered her mouth. Jamal stepped closer. The recorder crackled, then cut off again, leaving everyone frozen in place. The air felt heavy with waiting. They now knew the voice was there. Hidden, faint, but alive in the tiny machine. Farah looked up at the tree, the ribbon, and then at Buddy. She whispered, she wanted us to hear her. She left this for us. The hill was silent again. But it was no longer the same silence. It was charged with something deeper, like the pause before music begins. Everyone felt it, a truth was close, waiting to step out of the static. And Buddy, the dog who had kept his watch for 7 years, lowered his head on his paws and closed his eyes. He looked content, as if his long vigil was finally leading to what Noor had promised long ago. Would you like me to continue with part 4 in the same expanded style, around 1,300 words, where the recorder finally plays Noor's full message and freezes everyone with the truth? Morning light returned to the hill as if the storm had washed a new page clean. The grass still held drops of water. The banyan leaves shone like polished glass. People came quietly, one by one, and formed a soft half-circle a few steps away from Noor's grave. No one pushed forward. No one spoke loud. It felt like a classroom where everyone already knew that something important was about to be said. Buddy lay in his usual place, calm and watching, his paws folded, his eyes bright. Dr. Kamal knelt on the dry mat Baba Yanis had laid down to protect the small tin and the recorder. He opened the recorder again and cleaned the metal contacts with a tiny cloth and a careful hand. Sometimes these old devices wake up if we are gentle, he said. His voice was warm but steady. Sana stood nearby with her notebook closed. She had her camera in her bag but did not lift it. Some moments are not for lens or flash, they are for ears and hearts. Farah held the folded note against her chest. Jamal stood beside her, shoulders straight and kind. Mr. Rafi, the board chairperson, arrived and removed his cap as he stepped under the tree. The man in the gray jacket came too, the same neighbor who had asked for rules to be rules. He kept to the back, eyes low. School children held their parents' hands. Baba Yanis raised one palm and made a small motion for quiet, though there was almost no sound already. Even the birds seemed to pause. Dr. Kamal pressed the button. A wash of static rose like wind across a radio. People leaned closer without moving their feet. The static thinned. There was a faint hum, a click, and then a small, clear voice filled the morning air. It was a bright child's voice, careful and happy at the same time. Assalam, Mama. Assalam, Papa. It's Noor. And Buddy is here with me. The crowd froze the way a lake freezes in winter, still but full of depth beneath the surface. Farah covered her mouth, and her eyes filled. Jamal's hand found her arm and stayed there. Buddy lifted his head and looked toward the recorder, ears forward, tail still. The voice continued, simple and brave. If you are listening, it means I had to go to a long rest earlier than we wanted. Please do not be sad for too long. I want you to have a place that feels like sunshine when your heart is cloudy. Noor's voice grew a little softer, as if she had turned her head toward the banyan while she spoke. This is my plan. I call it the reading bench. It will sit under our tree. Children can come and read stories out loud. Grown ups can sit and listen. Dogs can lie down too. When I read to Buddy, my breath got steady and my worry went away. Reading made me brave. It can make other people brave as well. People exchanged glances, gentle and amazed. The voice continued. Buddy has a job. Buddy, are you listening? At that word, the dog's tail tapped the grass once, as if he understood. Buddy, please stay under the tree each day. Keep watch until Papa smiles without trying and Mama laughs at little things again. If you see the blue ribbon, remember that it means you are still on duty. Pharaoh let out a soft sound through her tears, half laugh, half breath, because she had tied a new ribbon each year without knowing it had been part of a plan. There was a rustle on the recording, then a small giggle. Baba Yanis, you are probably listening too. Thank you for keeping this place clean and kind. Please tell the board that Buddy is polite. He does not harm flowers or stones. If they worry about rules, tell them this is a special place for promise keeping. Maybe rules can have a door for kindness. The crowd shifted, not in noise, but in feeling. Mr. Rafi stared at the grass for a long second, then looked up at the tree. Noor's voice went on, Mama and Papa, I put the ribbon on the branch so you will know I am close. I put another ribbon in Buddy's toy box. He likes to carry it. If he ever brings the old ribbon to the ground, it means he is ready to show you where I hid this tin. It means you are ready to hear me again. At this, Sana felt a small shock of recognition. She thought of the frayed blue ribbon Buddy had carried to the same patch of ground 2 days before. The sign had been there, clear and simple, and they had almost missed its meaning. There was a soft clack on the recording, then Noor spoke with a slow, careful rhythm, the way a child reads something they wrote with love. Inside the tin I put a drawing of me and Buddy under our tree, and a note I wrote when I felt strong. I also put this recorder. If it is rainy and the tin rises, or if Buddy helps you find it, please press play. Share what I say if it helps other people feel lighter. Her breath made a tiny puff against the old microphone. Please build the bench when you can. Paint it a nice color. Put a little shelf for picture books. Make a small bowl for water. Leave room for pause. Farah's shoulders shook once, then calmed. Jamal's eyes shone but did not spill. The man in the gray jacket pressed his lips together and blinked fast. Behind him, a child leaned into his mother's coat and listened with round, careful eyes. The voice kept weaving its simple path. Mama, I know you will keep bringing flowers. Please choose the ones you like, not only the ones for me. Papa, please tell me about the sky and the traffic and the jokes your friends tell you, because I like ordinary things. Ordinary things make a day strong. There was another tiny laugh. And bring stories to the bench. I like stories with brave endings and silly parts in the middle. Noor paused, and a small humming tune came through, the kind a child makes when they are tying a bow or waiting for tea. Then her words turned toward the promise itself. Buddy, here is the promise, stay until Mama and Papa are safe inside again. If they are sad, keep your head near their shoes. If they are quiet, breathe with them. If they bring children, keep your tail slow. If the blue ribbon fades, do not worry. It is still a ribbon. It is still our sign. A sparrow landed on a high branch and did not move. The crowd seemed to stop even their breath to hear each word. If people ask why you are here, the child's voice said, "Tell them it is for love, not for show. Tell them we are making a small place where hearts can rest. Maybe the town will help. Maybe the board will allow a reading hour on Saturdays. Maybe, one day, there will be a little sign that says, 'Noor's reading bench, please read with kindness.'" The recorder clicked, and for a heartbeat they thought it had ended. But then the voice returned, lower and slower, like evening light. "If I cannot sit with you, I can still leave work for you to do. Work is love with its sleeves rolled up. My work is this bench. Your work is to sit and read. Buddy's work is to keep watch. Baba's work is to keep the place tidy. The board's work is to find the door inside the rule. Sana's work, if she is listening, is to tell the story gently so no one feels pushed, only invited." Sana pressed her lips together and blinked. She had not known Noor, but she felt seen by her simple words. Mr. Rafi took a slow breath and folded his cap in his hands. The man in the grey jacket bowed his head. Dr. Kamal glanced at Farah and Jamal, as if asking if they needed to stop the recorder, but they both shook their heads softly. They needed every word. There was one more part. "Mama and Papa," Noor said, "when you change the ribbon each year, say a small thank you to the tree for the shade, to Buddy for the watch, to Baba for the broom, to the town for the quiet. Then please go home and eat something warm and simple together. Tell a story about me that ends in laughter. I like when stories end in laughter." The final seconds held a tiny puff of breath, a soft kiss blown toward the microphone, and the words, "I love you. I am not far." Silence fell like a blanket over the hill. No one moved. No one even shifted their feet. The air felt full and bright and still. It was the kind of silence that does not push people away, it gathers them. Farah leaned forward and placed her hand on the grass. Jamal lowered his head and let one tear fall and stop there. Buddy rose and walked the small distance to the recorder. He sniffed it once, then placed his head gently against Farah's knee and stayed. What happened next did not come from one person. It rose from the group like steam from a kettle, soft and sure. The man in the grey jacket stepped forward and spoke first, his voice low. "I wrote the letter about rules," he said. "I was wrong. I am sorry. If the bench is built, I will paint it. I can bring a toolbox on Sunday." Mr. Rafi looked at him, then at the family, then at the crowd. His face softened in a way no one had seen in a meeting room. "We made that rule to protect the grounds," Mr. Rafi said. "But rules are tools, not chains. I heard the request for a door, and I found one." He cleared his throat and nodded toward Baba Yunus. "Baba, you will help us draft a guideline, a quiet hour on Saturdays for reading, a water bowl maintained, and a clean path. We will allow Buddy to remain as a special caretaker under supervision. I will bring this to the board for formal approval, but as chair I can say today that we will not call animal control. Mercy is also order." A soft wave of relief moved through the people. It was not loud, but it was deep. Pharaoh let out the breath she had been holding for days. Jamal smiled in a way that reached his eyes without effort. Sana finally opened her notebook, not to capture every word, but to write one line she knew would become the center of her article. "A child asked a town to build a bench, and a dog kept the plan safe for 7 years." Baba Yunus took off his cap and wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, then laughed at himself for doing it. "I have a plank in the shed," he said. "It is strong wood. It has waited long enough." Dr. Kamal patted Buddy and checked his ears, the gentle habit of a vet who cares. "He is healthy," he said softly, "and he is home." For a few minutes more, the crowd stayed exactly as they were, as if they feared that any step would break the spell of Noor's voice. Then the spell showed its true nature. It was not meant to be brittle. It was meant to be useful. People began to move in patient ways. Someone wrote down a list for books, someone else offered to bring a can of paint, A teenager said he would carve the small words for the sign if an adult helped him measure. Plans formed like small streams that would soon join. Sana walked to Farah and Jamal and asked, "May I record a few lines of your thoughts?" Farah nodded. "Please write it gently," she said. "Say that our daughter loved ordinary days. Say that this is her gift to other ordinary days." Jamal added, "Say that grief changes weight when we share it." Sana promised she would write with care. She did not use big phrases. She wrote the way Noor had spoken, clear as a window, warm as a cup of tea. Buddy lay down again under the banyan. The blue ribbon above him moved in a breeze that no one felt on their skin, the kind of small wind that seems to belong only to leaves. He was not guarding a secret anymore, he was guarding a plan that had finally been spoken out loud. The town did not cheer. They did not need to. They stood and breathed and let the new shape of the hill settle into their hearts. When people began to leave, they did so slowly, as if walking out of a kind library. Mr. Rafi stayed behind a moment and touched the trunk of the tree with 2 fingers, a simple thank you. The man in the gray jacket picked up a bit of trash he had not dropped and placed it in a bin. A child placed a picture book, a favorite about a brave little bird, on a flat stone as a promise to return. Farah and Jamal replaced the recorder in the tin and left it with Baba to keep safe until the bench was ready. As the sun lifted higher, the hill brightened. The truth, once hidden under rain-packed earth and quiet routines, now stood in the open. Buddy had stayed because a child had asked him to keep watch until her parents were light again and until a small bench could give courage to others. Everyone had frozen when they heard her voice, not from fear, but from respect. And when they finally moved, they moved toward building, toward reading, toward the work that turns love into a daily thing. The days after Noor's voice was heard felt different for everyone in town. People who had once walked past the hill without a thought now slowed their steps and looked up with quiet respect. The banyan tree seemed taller, the ribbon seemed brighter, and the bench that had been only a dream in a child's recording was now becoming a plan in many people's hearts. Farah and Jamal woke each morning with a new rhythm. Their grief was still there, but it no longer sat as heavy as before. It now had a direction, like a river that finds a channel. They talked about paint colors, wood, and children's books. They smiled through their tears, and for the first time in years, they laughed together when they remembered Noor's little phrases. Jamal joked, "She even gave the board instructions," and Farah replied, "Of course she did, she always wanted to be the boss of rules." The laughter felt like a gift sent directly from their daughter. Baba Yunus took out the plank of wood he had been keeping in his shed. It was thick and strong, cut from a tree that had fallen years ago in a storm. He brushed off the dust and oiled it carefully. "This is for her bench," he said. His hands were old, but steady. When neighbors came to help, he guided them with patience. Young men carried tools, teenagers brought cans of paint, and even children helped sand the edges of the wood with small squares of paper. Sana wrote her article, choosing each word with care. She avoided grand titles or dramatic lines. She told the story simply, how a girl left a message, how her dog kept watch, and how a town was now preparing to honor both. The paper printed it on the front page with the headline, "Buddy and the Promise of the Reading Bench." Copies were shared in shops, schools, and tea stalls. People read it quietly and then folded the paper with gentle hands. Some clipped the article to keep. Dr. Kamal checked on Buddy often. He gave him vitamins and brushed his coat. "He has lived many years outside," the vet said, "but he is healthy. He has work, and work keeps the heart strong." Children sometimes brought biscuits for Buddy, though Baba reminded them to ask permission before giving food. The dog stayed polite, always waiting, never rushing. He seemed to know the attention was not really for him, but for the promise he carried. The bench began to take shape under the banyan tree. It was wide enough for 3 children to sit side by side, with curved arms for comfort. The town painter chose a soft green color, the shade of new leaves in spring. When the first coat dried, people stepped back and nodded. "It looks alive," someone said. "It looks like it belongs." Next to the bench, they fixed a small wooden shelf with space for 10 or 12 books. On the day it was nailed in place, a girl ran forward and placed the bird story she had left on the stone. Others soon followed, bringing picture books, storybooks, and poems. When the bench was finally ready, Farah tied a fresh blue ribbon above it, brighter than the old one. She whispered, "Here it is, Noor. Just as you asked." Jamal sat beside her, his hand resting on the wood. Buddy curled at their feet, head on his paws, tail tapping once in quiet approval. The ribbon fluttered, and it felt as if the tree itself had nodded. The first Saturday reading hour arrived like a festival without noise. Families gathered with baskets of food. Children held books in their arms. Baba swept the path until it shone, then sat back and watched with a proud smile. Mr. Rafi, the board chair, stood at a respectful distance, humbled but glad. The man in the gray jacket came with brushes and repainted the bench's legs, making sure they looked neat. A little boy climbed onto the bench with a book about a lion who learned to share. His voice was small but clear. Buddy sat near his shoes, eyes half closed, tail brushing the ground in rhythm with the story. Other children listened with bright faces. Parents watched and felt their hearts soften. Farah whispered to Jamal, "She is here." Every time they read, "She is here." Jamal nodded, unable to speak, but his hand closed firmly around hers. Week after week, the reading bench became a tradition. Children who once feared the graveyard now asked their parents to visit. Teachers brought students on field trips. Travelers passing through town stopped to see the bench and left behind books in their own languages. The shelf grew so full that another had to be built. Stories of dragons, explorers, and little animals filled the air under the banyan tree. Sana wrote a follow-up article, "A Town Finds Light in Ordinary Words." She described how reading together created small bonds, how Buddy became a symbol of loyalty, and how grief turned into kindness. The story reached other towns, and people wrote letters asking how to start their own reading benches. Farah and Jamal answered with warmth, "Begin with a place, a promise, and patience. The rest will come." Years passed, but the bench never lost its meaning. Each new blue ribbon tied to the tree marked another year of promise kept. Buddy grew older, his fur turning lighter, his steps slower. But he never stopped coming. Even when his legs ached, he lay down beside the bench and listened. Children sometimes leaned close and read softly to him, believing he understood every word. In truth, he did not need to understand the lines, he understood the love inside the voices. When Buddy finally rested for the last time, the town mourned him with respect. They placed a small stone near the bench with simple words, "Buddy, faithful friend and keeper of promises." Farah and Jamal tied 2 ribbons that year, one for Noor and one for Buddy. The bench remained, the books kept coming, and the reading hours continued. People told children the full story, of a girl who left a message, a dog who kept watch, and a town that learned how to open the door inside a rule. And so the graveyard was no longer just a place of silence. It became a place of voices, soft, young, old, cheerful, thoughtful, carrying words into the air. Each sentence read aloud was another way of keeping Noor's promise alive. The banyan tree grew taller, its roots stronger. The ribbons danced in every season. And under its shade, grief and love lived side by side, no longer heavy, but transformed into something that helped others. Love had kept its promise. It had turned into a bench, a shelf of books, a ribbon, a dog's steady watch, and a town's gentle tradition. It proved that love does not end, it changes shape and waits for us to notice. And once noticed, it teaches us to sit, to listen, and to share.